to Canada's boxing channel. Our regular Sunday slot, Jamie and myself, and Jamie is accompanied, as he was last week, by Coach Julian. And it appears that Gerry is joining us as well as I'm doing the intro. Hopefully, we'll be joined a little later on by Andy from Andy's Cavern.
Thank you.
Speak of the devil, as it were. Let me give a shout out. Andy's Cavern, if you've not yet subscribed, that should be something that should be on your priority list to do. Guys, great to see you. And thank each of you for making the time available. Now, of course, I understand because of the time difference, I'm at a little bit of an advantage because I was able to watch last night's whole card and be wrapped by 8 o'clock in the evening. You guys were probably up at various times during the night. But from what we were chatting about before we went live, maybe we should start off with Shakur Stevenson and William Zepeda. There's a number of fights we can talk about, but this one appears to be one where everybody has managed to see it. So why don't we lead off? Julian, would you like to start on this one?
Absolutely. I mean, confession time, I've seen highlights for reasons, time differences and various things. I've just been busy today, but I've caught various highlights on YouTube. I mean, he's a fantastic fighter. He's just such a talent. Zepeda's a really elite fighter as well. And I think it's just fantastic that we're getting those matches now. The old adage that two southpaws make for a bad fight. That wasn't the case last night. And I just think he's just defensively superb. You know, he didn't use the ring like he would usually. It was almost, you know, in the pocket for large elements of that fight. But again, masterful performance, really good competitive fight. And the one thing for me was the lightweight division is so hot right now. You know, you've got Andy Cruz, you've got Keyshawn Davis coming up, and then you've got Zepeda, and you've got some really, really fantastic fighters, and you've got Sam Noakes, you know, the UK's Sam Noakes as well. So the 135-pound division is looking brilliant.
Yeah, I was very impressed. I thought that Shakur, as much as for, you know, a number of reasons, he's not one of my favorite fighters. I thought he put to bed some questions that people had about his sprinting and other Gerry-like behaviors. He showed he has a bit of Tom about him last night.
Yeah, he's just such a good fighter. He's so sharp. I remember a gym I used to coach at, going back about 6-7 years ago, and the guy who used to head the gym, it was called Purge Boxing Academy. He was a Shakur Stevenson nut back then, you know, and he just turned over, and he used to work on various Shakur Stevenson combinations with his fighters. Absolutely loved him. And I think he's brilliant. There's not that many more superlatives I can say. You know, he's beaten Valdez now, he's beaten Zepeda. Those are two really good fighters. Those are two elite fighters who are undefeated, and he's beat them with a little bit of room to spare. And there's not a lot he can't do. I mean, we've got maybe Tank Davis at lightweight. That fight might happen if he can get himself out of his legal problems he's got. But I love to see a defensive fighter who can also throw hands as well. He ticks all the boxes for me.
I did think that the scorecards were for me a little too wide. I mean, I thought maybe Zepeda won, say, 4 rounds, but the scorecard seemed to suggest that he only won 2. Does anybody else want to take a crack at this fight? Jamie,
I had it a little bit wider than Zepeda, the 4 rounds, just because Zepeda was going forward, yeah, but you know, I don't think they were. Maybe a lot of people who were watching weren't taken into account. And I want to echo Julian really. Shakur Stevenson, it's like the little rolls that he does, you know, the slips, and you know, I think a lot of people who may be scoring more rounds in favour of Zepeda were just like, oh, he's going forward and he's throwing hands. And because it was in the pocket at times, I think a lot of people were like, oh, he's landing. But there was a lot of slipping and sliding going on. So I think Zepeda had Peter. Stevenson had it that little bit wider, and again, like Julian, I don't want to be the nodding dog and just agree, but it's great to see a fighter because there were people making noises, weren't there? Like when he turned over, oh, he's going to be like a Floyd Mayweather, and he's going to be like defensive. Got the old Carlsberg on the go, by the way.
Good man.
He's going to be like defensive and all this, but no, he's also showing a bit of attacking nous as well, and it is a shame that he's not really a big puncher. Like when he fought Josh Padley, he should have really, for Padley's level, he should have got him out of there. But the thing is, he's, when he is attacking, he's still looking very good doing it. He's just not got that sort of ultimate firework that, say, Belanga, who we're going to talk about later, has potentially got, you know what I mean? But I don't think it hurts him as long as he's entertaining. And it was great to see that, coming forward and still being defensively sound. I think he's a cracking little fighter, and I think he could beat Tank, to be honest with you.
Yeah, you might be right. I tend to sort of, and I know this is a weakness of mine, I tend to sort of give more credit to the come forward fighter. Even if they're not landing, I know that the way my brain works, I like that approach. So for me, I'll always sort of be probably giving a person a few more points than they may deserve. Andy, sorry, Jamie, did you have something else?
I was just going to say that's an American style of, I think that's more of an American sort of school of thought, isn't it? Attacking, but there's nothing wrong with it.
I think it used to be called Brooklyn scoring.
There you go.
Andy, I know that you were up. We were chatting as you were pulling like a late night shift there. What's your thinking?
Not too late though. I think I pulled the pin about the back at between 2.5, 2. Like Julian, I've only seen the highlights of that fight, but what I've seen, I enjoyed, and I think other than having the big KO punch, Stevenson does come across as quite a very complete fighter. I think he came under a lot of unfair. He got a lot of unfair stick for the Josh Padley performance for not getting him out of there. But I would give more credit to Josh Padley for staying in there and being so plucky and taking his lumps. He showed his most heart as I've seen in a long time in the boxing ring that night. But no, I think Stevenson was kind of laughing himself how's Padley taking all this punishment, coming back and rallying and whatnot. It made it an entertaining fight, and I'm sure it put a smile on Turkey Al Sheikh's face because he's not been smiling a lot lately. He was smiling last night because there was a lot of good fights and a lot of good action. But no, Stevenson's top drawer, isn't he? He's probably one in the top 5 pound for pound, I would say, at the moment. I've not really reassessed the pound for pound ratings recently for one reason or another, but definitely I think after watching that last night, they always say you're only as good as your last fight, but he certainly impressed me last night from what I've seen. I'll try and see the whole fight at some point, but definitely good.
My take is that both Stevenson and Zepeda gained fans last night. Gerry, I know that you weren't able to catch this one, so you're sitting this one out. So maybe we should flip to another fight. Did anybody manage to catch the Suborail Matthias fight? I know Andy, you did.
Missed that one as well.
Yeah,
I saw the second half of that one, Bob. Yeah,
that was quite the fight.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I guess people have seen the Hamza Sheeraz. Is that?
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah,
so we've got a fight that we've all seen. Gerry, why don't we kick off with you since we had to skip you on the Stevenson fight? What's your thinking of the Hamza Sheeraz Edgar Berlanga fight?
Well, it was very much a restoration of his reputation. I think this fight for Sheeraz. I think when Sheeraz was coming up originally, I basically, I thought he has potential. I'm never one for don't always swallow the hype because it has a bad habit of disproving itself on numerous occasions. So, I was confidently positive about Sheeraz initially. And then the Adames fight, which basically didn't make him look good. And I thought he lost that fight. And okay, sometimes people have bad days at the office, but I thought he was lucky to get that draw. And then it emerged about certain aspects that maybe you guys were aware of, but I wasn't until that fight, which was basically how he's a poster boy for Riyadh season, etc., etc., etc. So that to me was all a little bit suspicious. So I was curious as to how this one was going to play out, and whether somebody like Berlanga, who he's tough enough, again, somebody who's probably a little bit overrated by Eddie Hearn. I kind of was curious to see, okay, let's see what Sheeraz can do. And despite the sort of cagey start, I guess Sheeraz showed us that he actually is very strong. That's legit. He was able to take shots off Berlanga, who he's not a killer puncher, but you know he does have an effective punch on him himself. And I basically saw Sheeraz able to do what he liked with him, and eventually use his overall sort of advantages against Berlanga, to the point where he caught him and Berlanga didn't know what to do. I thought Berlanga looked absolutely terrified when he came out for the fifth. Basically, I think he knew it was curtains. So Sheeraz has sort of restored himself in the eyes of many. He's probably going to be lined up now, I think, to fight Canelo Alvarez.
Yeah.
We'll see about that, but I'd say that's the strategy involved with Riyadh season. Some people may be looking at this. I hate these kind of comparisons, right? They're not worth too much, in my opinion. People are going to be looking at this fight and thinking, oh, well, Canelo didn't do that to Berlanga. Let's face it, Canelo is in cruise control right now in these last few years of his career. Maybe he still couldn't have done that to Berlanga, but I'm not reading too much into that, because different set of circumstances. Sheeraz needed to do something impressive last night, I think, to restore a slightly more embarrassing outcome. You know, you had Frank Warren losing his shit, pardon me, in the last fight, and Turkey, and people having words with referee and stuff coming out about broken hands and all that type of thing. So he needed to do that. Whereas when Canelo fought Berlanga, yeah, that's just another guy for Canelo, wasn't it? So, you know, I'll just do my Canelo thing. That's what Canelo, I think, looked at that fight and sort of did his own thing, fought his own pace, got the win. The rest is history. So I'm not reading too much into that, but I think a fight between those two guys will be interesting. Canelo obviously can get inside. If he can dictate the pace, he might be quite successful with Sheeraz. But if Sheeraz is able to use all those attributes, you know, some people might make the comparison with Callum Smith, obviously with those size advantages. And we've seen that obviously Canelo was able to negate that. But if Sheeraz can really dictate that, he's in with a shot, in my opinion, but I'm not holding my breath. But last night was a much needed win for Sheeraz. So we'll see what the next fight holds for him.
Yeah, Sheeraz has said, post fight that he would stand and trade with Canelo. He's very respectful of Canelo. He looks up to Canelo, and it would be an honor to be in the ring with him. I thought that fight last night could have been stopped in the fourth. Looking at Edgar's eyes, there was nobody home. Does anybody want to take Julian, Jamie, take a crack at this fight?
Okay, so
go on, Julian.
Oh, sorry, Jim. So we spoke about this last week. I felt like I was in a very small minority saying we've got to give Sheeraz a chance. I didn't criticize him for his last fight. I don't go back several years to the Bradley Skeet fight. You know me, whenever I talk about boxing, I always talk about the development of fighters. we have too many expectations of fighters who have only done a handful of 10-rounders, and we're looking for the finished article. And it's really unfair. And I do believe there's a British thing there that we're always looking for a weakness, and then when if there is a weakness, or if a fighter has a bad performance, we just say, "I told you he was no good. He's overrated."
Yeah.
Whatever happened to us saying, forget the zero, the undefeated record, or the draws. Let's look at the fight and let's look at the development. So, we spoke last week. I says I fancy Sheeraz strongly to win this fight. I thought style-wise, he would win on points. I thought he'd be a commanding winner on points against Berlanga, who I wasn't massively impressed with the times I've seen him. But this week, I always wait really to sort of think about things in a bit more detail when I see them on the scales at the weighing. So I saw Berlanga midweek, throwing money in underwear at Oscar De La Hoya. He looked absolutely shocking. This was actually 48 hours out from the weigh-in. He looked awful. I thought his cheekbones were sucked in. He looked emaciated, actually. And then I saw the work that Sheeraz had been doing with Andy Lee, and I could see there were some real things that he'd been working on, the basics that he's perhaps not been doing. I don't like he's way too close often. And I really like what Andy Lee, in such a short period of time, has brought from him. And a coach can do that. So I really strongly fancied him. And then when it come to fight time, I got no surprises whatsoever for me. I thought his punch picking was absolutely phenomenal. Berlanga can hit. He obviously had rehydrated when it got they got into the ring, but I thought Sheeraz is world class. His punching's world class. I liked his structure. I liked how he went about his work. And I don't want to see him fight Canelo. I'm not sure what the plan is, but generally these masters get to a stage where they don't want the young bucks anyway. They tend to avoid them. Hence the reason going for the Crawford fight. You go where the money is, and there's just too much of a high risk. Like the Benavides fight, Canelo's not fancying that one either. And for me, for Sheeraz, I would leave him for another year, 18 months. High profile fights, but let's not push him right to the top of the division. Now let him develop, let him grow. But really, really impressive. He's a really impressive fighter, but I also think he's a really impressive young man. And I thought Berlanga is just a punk. Just saw how he behaved this week. It was beautiful watching him get dropped, because he really did think he was something special. And I thought, a nice, young, hard-working man, putting him on his ass 3 times. I loved it. That was fantastic.
Does anybody think that that Berlanga, with this focus, this obsession, if you like, with Oscar De La Hoya, that was all a totally unnecessary distraction, that sort of it took him away from what he should be doing, which is focusing on a fight with Hamza Sheeraz?
I love the Oscar De La Hoya line. When you won a world title, come and talk to me. I thought that was such a great line. Just shut up. You're talking to me. You know what I've done in boxing. Just shut up. I loved it.
Can I ask you a question? I'm just looking at the rankings in super middleweight. I've picked a name who I would stick him in with, and I'm just curious to see, if we're not going for the Canelo Alvarez, who would you stick him in with next?
Keep him away from Janabek and people that, because I just don't think he's all that. I'm sorry, Julian, I really don't. I just think as soon as you get him in with a mover, he's going to struggle. He's too and I realise I'm not looking at it from a coach's perspective. I understand that, but he's just too basic for me. He's very, very upright. He's got that European style. And Callum Smith, you said it before, Gerry, like Callum Smith. That's a perfect sort of comparison. Callum Smith, very good fighter, but very, very upright. And when it comes against the elites, he goes in the kitchen and he just melts a little bit. He's a bit like a candle. So I just think against a flashy boxer and someone good on their feet, I think he's going to struggle. Keep him away from that style of fighter. Berlanga, I sound like a hypocrite because I thought Berlanga might have been able to do a job on him. But Berlanga was probably tailor-made for him, to be fair. But hindsight's a wonderful thing, isn't it?
How about
keep him away from movers?
How about putting him in with somebody like Jaime Munguia?
That would be a good fight.
Interesting fight, yeah.
Good fight.
Yeah,
That's the name
stylistic.
that popped into my. Actually, two names popped into my mind. One I never, ever, ever want to see again. That's William Skull, and the other was Munguia. Andy, what are you thinking? What's the?
I think he needs to, like Julian says, excuse me, he needs to grow. It's too much Russian boxers, I think. No,
Yeah.
not Russian, as in from Russia. Russian boxers. Sounded like I said Russian.
We understand.
I would stick him in with. No, I'd like to see him in. I'd like to see him in with Eubank Jr. at 168. It's a fight I could probably win.
Yeah. I don't think Eubank Jr. would fancy that, Andy.
I don't think he'd take it. I think it's too late in the game for him. But if he got enough money offered to him, you never know. His money is king, I think, with him, as with many. I think I said last week, I always thought he had all the attributes to do well, but he wasn't. He didn't. I'm trying to remember the word I used. He wasn't. He didn't have enough conviction in the Adames fight. He was too tentative. Whereas that seemed to have left him in this fight. I know he had a fairly slow start, but he was throwing punches with more conviction and he looked more confident. But like Julian says, that could be down to Andy Lee. I think Andy Lee's a great communicator with the boxers, and you see what he's done with Joseph Parker and many others. And
look what he did with Ben Whittaker. Like he turned Ben Whittaker around. One of my least favorite fighters, but
and he's got a good sort of calmness about him, and I think calmness is important in boxing instead of folks ranting and shouting all the time. You know, like we've seen in Tyson Fury's first Usyk fight. I know Andy Lee was in that corner. It wasn't him that was doing the ranting and shouting, as we all know. But no, I think maybe somebody like Eubank Jr. or Munguia, as you say, Bob. But I wouldn't stick him straight in with Canelo. But like you say, Canelo might not want that. He's probably in a different trajectory anyway, or whatever. Yeah. But no, it's a good performance by him. So
can I just say, I said Janabek, didn't I? Janabek's a bloody middleweight. So don't stick him in with him. Jesus.
Julian, who would you?
Can I just point out? So go on, Gerry.
Who would you stick him in with? I'm just curious because so you're looking, and I actually get that. I get that, but I just feel like the men in control are angling possibly a Canelo fight. So who do you think? The Munguia fight's a great one, I have to say. So who would you say?
Who are you asking, Gerry?
Oh, I'm asking Julian because he never answered me.
Tough fighters who's going to give him hard fights, not guys who are going to roll over. Because you know me, I'm like a stuck record, and it's the Moses Ituma sort of scenario. At some point, you get someone to a stage where you can't go backwards. You know, and I'm not going to compare Anthony Joshua, but Anthony Joshua got to the stage where he won a version of the World Heavyweight Championship against Charles Martin, and he hadn't learned so many basic things he couldn't do. He couldn't block or parry a jab. So when Andy Ruiz was walking him down, he hadn't got a clue how to deal with that. But because he won a world title, you can't go backwards. The public doesn't allow you to learn. Yeah. And people said about Joshua, he had the L plates on, and I'm not comparing the styles. But Sheeraz will be exactly the same thing. If money was no object, the Eubank Jr. fight's a really good one, you know, bearing in mind Eubank Jr.'s age. I'm not fussed, Gerry. Genuinely, I'm not somebody who throws names around. You know me long enough now to say I want to. He should fight him. He should fight him. He should fight people who is going to give him tough 10-rounders and ask questions, but not too many questions. Because what is it all about? If you become a world champion, we want world champions who are world champions for years and years and years who dominate. So you better know your stuff by the time you get to that stage. And it's just me. I hate fighters being rushed. You could have argued last night, you know, on Saturday night, it was rushed to some extent. I just hate fighters being rushed. There's this massive demand to test his chin, to test him against this style and that style, and put him in with Canelo. It's ludicrous. We're not developing great fighters. We're just developing very rich fighters.
Mm-hmm. Jules, you'd almost say that it's like a bad habit, and the people who end up sort of becoming naturally more successful are those who don't have the spotlight on them because they can develop naturally and then come to fruition at their own speed. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, you learn 70-80% of what you learn in the gym, and there's an element of what you learn in the ring. And fighters now are not having these records where they've got 30, 40 fights and they're challenging for world titles. We're just expediting them to get to that title, and I just feel it's unnecessary. Again, what happens is, as well, we got Shakur Stevenson, those guys. These are elite who we're talking about, by the way. They're fighting twice a year, so
Yeah.
you're having two long camps, and you're fighting twice a year for mega money, and no one's learning the trade. And I think ringcraft's a massive thing. I know I'm probably talking like 30, 40 years ago, and I'm stuck in the past. But for me, I want to see fighters be able to do certain things before they become world champion. I expect my world champion, to have most of the attributes by the time they become a world champion, and then, develop from there on to become great fighters. But we're getting champions now, British fighters winning world titles. They're making 1 defense, 2 defense, 3 defense, and that's it. There's no longevity in that.
And historically, we've done this. I mean, Leon Spinks fought for the world title after 7 professional fights, and it destroyed him. Sure, he beat Muhammad Ali, and then he lost in the rematch. But Spinks had not learned enough.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
And Leon Spinks simply wasn't equipped to be world champion at the time he was world champion, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I know I'm going back into ancient history now.
Well, I mean, his career went down the toilet, so you're making a perfectly good point there, Bob.
A name that did pop to mind as well as Jaime Munguia is Jamal Charlo. He's a WBC, and Jamal Charlo is unbeaten. That might be. I know Turki Al-Sheikh is talking about Canelo and Hamza in 2026, but a Jamal Charlo would be a good interim fight, I would think. But
that's my pick, Bob.
Okay, right.
It's annoying though, isn't it? Who's promoting him? Frank Warren or Turki Al-Sheikh? Keep your nose out. Do you know what I mean? Like, but the thing is, I was going to say, it's quite unusual that he has been rushed in the way that he has, given who his promoter is, and it shows really who's calling the shots. Because Frank Warren of old, like, I know I always make the Ricky Hatton comparison. Like, well, not a comparison, but I always talk about Ricky Hatton because he's the fighter that I knew inside out when I was growing up. Like, I always joke I could have told you what he had for breakfast at one point. And, the development of Ricky, faded stars, will just, WBU title shot, Freddie Pendleton, Ben Tacky, Vince Phillips. They were all just a little, well, Phillips was 39, way past it, but it looked good on the record, you know what I mean? And that was Frank Warren. And we were shouting from the rafters, get him in with Costa Zoo, get him in with Vivian Harris. I mean, he never fought Vivian Harris, but like, we were shouting. And then when you look at it, it was perfect timing. Frank knows what he's doing. But I think they're just being a slave to money. That's why they're holding hands with him. They're doing all these things that, maybe are against their principles, just for the green. It's like a Don King sort of vibe, really.
I think there's
I'll do anything for a double.
Sorry to interrupt. I think there's one other factor that we can't overlook, and that's that Turki Al-Sheikh and Saudi Arabia, I believe, just one guy's opinion, are very keen on having an Islamic world champion as a standard bearer for the faith. And Hamza Sheeraz is a devout proponent of the faith. So you can see how that sort of, works, right?
Yeah, certainly.
I'd also like to see these fighters fighting maybe 4 times a year.
Yeah.
And Turki Al-Sheikh seems to be able to strike deals quicker than all this standoffishness it was before he came around. So I don't see any reason why they can't be fighting 4 times a year.
Oh, I completely agree. I mean, this business of fighting once or twice a year is a relatively modern occurrence. I'm just looking at the clock in the top right-hand corner here, and I'm wondering, should we continue our conversation on part 2 on Andy's Cavern?
Yep, sounds good.
Okay, folks. Yeah. Well, if you've enjoyed part 1 here on Canada's Boxing Channel, please join us all for part 2 on Andy's Cavern. Please like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you in a few minutes on Andy's Cavern. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.